short time ago, in a galaxy not far away, the economy was booming and people were changing jobs at will. Meanwhile, an invisible enemy was mounting a vicious attack. Within weeks, millions of jobs were lost. Job seekers needed a bold counterattack to rise from the ashes, so workNet DuPage scheduled a webinar to teach Jedi Mind tricks for job seekers. What? Huh? Sorry, I must have dozed off there for a minute. I've seen that introduction way too many times now. Oh my goodness, we are starting like right now. Bear with me just a minute, I gotta change my clothes. I'll be right back. Stay there. Okay, thank you for your patience there. I just flew in, obviously, changed my clothes, and we're ready to go. So, I know what you're thinking, really, probably a couple of things right now, but first and foremost, this is Jedi Mind tricks for the job seeker, and where's the Jedi outfit, right? I don't look like that guy at all. Well, we did this exact same presentation a couple of months ago for my job club in Wheaton, the Jobs Driven Networking group, and we had a lot of fun with it. I did some Jedi Mind tricks in there, and as you can see, we meet here every third Thursday. Where's my clicker, by the way? There it is. And we did some more serious, force manipulation that created some concerned reactions. How accurate is that?
This is scary. Do this. Stop it.
But my biggest regret from this was that a lot of people walked out with, well, I don't know if overwhelmed is the right word, but just like it was a whole new skill set that they then had to learn, and they weren't sure if they could learn. It was like I told them they really had to become a Jedi Master in order to do this stuff. And I did present it in a way that, hey, this is very advanced level stuff, to really emphasize this is cool is what I meant. But I didn't emphasize the fact that anybody could do this. Right? This is very easy to do once you know how it works. And so I wanted to really emphasize that. And the other thing that I'm guessing you're thinking, if you weren't at first, you have to be by now, is just the amazing, uncanny likeness, the resemblance that I have to Han Solo. Right? I know, I look just like him. In fact, we're like twins. It's right. The number of times I get mistaken for Harrison Ford is really roughly like zero. But I'm him today, and the reason I chose Han Solo specifically is because we all know he's not a Jedi. If you've watched the movies before, although the Force does run very strong in his family, and it's weird how all these really kind of tight situations that he's been in, that he shouldn't have been able to get out of, he's been able to get out of. I don't know. You tell me the Force wasn't involved with that. I don't know. He always seems to come out on top, And before you jump on the chat box, yes, I know there was that one time in that one movie where he didn't necessarily come out on top. I'm not going to spoil anything here, but for those who know that reference and what I'm talking about, you have to admit that was a sacrifice done out of love. Right, and if you followed through the story, you know that wasn't the last time that we see him. So he did really come out on top, but I digress. The point is here that I know that this isn't, some kind of magical force that we're using. We're being attacked by an invisible enemy, as we keep hearing on the news. So I'm saying let's use our invisible force to attack back. I know that we're not aligning midichlorians in our bloodstream to attack what's going on right now. You can call this whatever you want to call it. You can call it magic. You can call it, casting spells if you want. I mean, any just crazy name you could possibly think of for this. Like, I don't know. You can call it a scientifically proven tactics from social psychology. Whatever just silliness you want to call this. The most important question that you want to ask yourself is, does it work? Is this true? Can if I did this, is it actually going to work, right? And is it true, that question? I feel like I've already answered that question, so instead of answering it again for you, I'm just gonna play the clip of me answering that question. So obviously, it is true, and I know you must be having double vision by now, so I will get rid of the Han Solo from the screen here, and I'm actually going to step over here so you can see the agenda here for today. So, learn today, you will, in Yoda speak, and I do have to share, I promised my son that I would. You know why the Star Wars movies came out 4, 5, 6, and then 1, 2, 3, right? In the order of the movies, 4, 5, 6, and then 1, 2, 3. In charge of scheduling, Yoda was. Sorry. I'm a dad. Dad jokes, I gotta use them. So, learn today, you will. We're going to learn that anyone can use these Jedi mind tricks. You don't have to be a Jedi to use this stuff. We're going to learn visionary, galactic, princess-like planning techniques, so you can use this stuff here as quickly as the end of today. You can start using this. We're going to learn how to influence the decisions of other people like Obi-Wan by using thought speed. Then we're going to get into Millennium-Falcon-like timing and how you can use that to your advantage in your job search. We're going to go over how to read minds, right? Reading the minds of people who are in other locations, like Kylo and Rey could do. And then we're going to talk about how to reflect and disarm other people, like Rey could do, without conscious detection, so that they don't catch on to what you're doing. And finally, we're going to talk about how to use body language, like Luke, to display your intentions and create a friend. All right? And build rapport. All right, now the only way that I know that I can prove something is if we quantify it, right? So let's do that. I want to start out by quantifying where you're at right now. How would you rate your interviewing skills? And on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being absolute best possible ever. All right, this is your absolute best. And I'm going to put a poll, actually, Amy, if you can put a poll as I'm standing here, if you can put that poll on there and answer this. 10 is, there isn't a behavior question or a skills question or any kind of question that you couldn't answer, right? If they inadvertently ask you an illegal question, you're going to know exactly how to respond to any possible illegal question, right? That's a 10. You know everything about everything. How do you rate yourself on that scale? All right, and let's put those numbers in there if we can. And those usually kind of tabulate as we go here. I did one at the last meeting, which was Bruce Bixler, by the way. I got the webinar. It's out on YouTube. Check that out. He does a great job. But the results that I ended up with were different from what I was reading off on the screen. So even though I'm seeing 6s and 7s and 8s even on here, we'll come back to that at the break because it'll probably be right at that point. The next thing is that my goal is to, again, prove that this works. So another good way to do that is to use a Jedi mind trick on you. And my objective is to get you working on your interviewing and networking skills throughout the week. To get you right now to commit that you're going to do that. Maybe not right now, but throughout this webinar, that you are definitely going to be working on your interviewing skills and trying these techniques multiple times throughout the week. So you notice I've got a sentence up here that says, practice these techniques multiple times this week. But you notice that that sentence is offset just a little bit, right? And it starts with a lowercase p. Weird, huh? It's almost as if there should be 2 more words at the start of that sentence. Weird, huh? What could those 2 words be? And Amy, if you can monitor that chat box for me and take a look in there, and everybody watching this, if you can type into that chat box, what do you think those 2 words should be at the start of that sentence? And humor me here, even if you're thinking to yourself, really, is this guy serious? Yes, this guy is serious. Type in the 2 words that you sincerely think should start out that sentence. And Amy, what are you seeing in there?
I will.
I will. Okay, those are the right words. Thank you. And you can hop out of there. You don't have to answer anymore. And Amy, I'm going to pop you on mute for just a moment. And I will. Yes, those are the right 2 words, but not in that order. You got them reversed, right? I feel like the old 2 and 2. What was that show? You don't have to put that in in the chat box. But you got them reversed. Will I, not I will. And the reason for that is there was a study that was done at the University of Illinois where they took 2 different control groups and basically they gave them a bunch of very difficult anagrams to solve, and half of the group, they told them it's also a handwriting exercise, and half of them they told to write the words I will 20 times so they can evaluate the handwriting. The other half they said to write will I down, and then they gave them these very challenging anagrams, and anagrams, like they would have WHEN and ask you to unscramble those to write another word like HEWN, so they turned when into hewn. And when it was all said and done, the group that wrote out will I 20 times before they started was twice as likely to solve all the anagrams successfully than the other group that was writing I will, I will. And the theory behind this is that when you're trying to pump yourself up and say I will, and I'm definitely going to do this, and yes, I'm going to get it, I'm confident, that's not as effective as will I do this? Will I practice these interviewing techniques multiple times a week? Because when you ask will I and you don't answer, and don't just write no, I won't, right? You're going to ask that question without an answer. It causes your brain to start thinking about the times where you did succeed. Will I do this? When did I have a challenge like this and I was successful in getting that thing done? And you start putting that type of information into your head, and then you start creatively coming up with ways that you can get that thing done. And I learned about this through a wonderful book called To Sell is Human by Daniel Pink. And I'll put it on the screen here. I'm going to recommend a bunch of different books here as we're talking. They're all going to be on my recommended books page, speedupmyjobsearch.com/books. And you can get the full details on this study and a whole bunch of other studies. Really, any book by Daniel Pink I think is fantastic. Jim, I know that had recommended one as well that was, and I can't think of it right now. I'll come back to it after break when I get a chance to take a quick look. But he's got a number of great books, and I'll go over a couple more as we're going here. But write down will I in front of that, and we'll see if that helps you to actually practice these things throughout the week. Okay? So another thing to prove that this works is a tactic that is very, very easy. Not prove that it works. I'm sorry, I misspoke. To prove that it's very easy for you to do and that anyone can do this, and that it could work on anyone, is the question, are you capable of doing research? Right? Is that within your capabilities? I think yes. I don't know anybody who would not be able to do some research prior to an interview or just having the ability to do that. Well, there's a technique that I call the slow pitch technique. And this has been a technique I have been teaching for a very long time. In fact, the very first presentation I did for workNet DuPage, this was back in 2002, I believe, when I first met Jim. At that point, though, I still shared this slow pitch technique. So this is a very old technique, but it works. As the late great Zig Ziglar always liked to say, it wouldn't be old if it wasn't good, right? Things stick around when they're really good. If it wasn't very good, it would go away. So here's the way that this works. When you are doing your research for your next interview, look for some good news happening, some positive information, something that if you worked at that company, you would be proud to know this about your organization, right? So let's say, the sales revenues have just gone up by 25% over the last year, right? So now in your interview, you can casually mention to them, you know, when I was doing my research for our meeting today, which, by the way, says, hey, I was doing research for our meeting today because I'm very interested in this position. Hey, when I was doing my research for our meeting today, I noticed that your sales revenues have just gone through the roof this last year, up like 25%. Did you bring in a new sales team, or what's happening to cause that? All right, that is what I would call a slow softball pitch right down the middle. And even if that hiring manager wasn't intending on it, they're going to look around for a bat and want to knock that thing out of the park. They're going to feel compelled to start sharing the good news about their company. They're going to feel like they want to sell you on this opportunity and tell you about all the great things that are going on there. Right? Now, why do you want this person selling you on this opportunity? Obviously, you're interested, you're there, you're interviewing for the job. Well, if you just stop and think for a minute, think about the psychological foundation of that scenario of one person selling another person on anything, right? The person who's doing the selling is using their own personal, persuasive skills, their personal opinions and convictions, and laying them out there vulnerably to achieve the interest in whatever it is that they're selling, right? In this case, they're trying to get you interested in the position. So that then gives you a choice. You can either reject that hiring manager and make them feel awful about their personal convictions, or you can start buying into what they're selling, becoming more and more interested in the position based on what they're telling you, because that's going to make them feel great, right? That's going to give them that feeling of accomplishment they set out to achieve when they first started selling you on the opportunity, right? That's going to affect the little conversation they have with themselves when you leave that interview, and they say to themselves, boy, I don't know what it was about that person. I just liked him. Right? And it's because all this stuff going on, you're making them feel great in the whole scenario that you're in. All this thing happened because you came prepared with a slow pitch down the middle question from your research the night before. All right? Again, you can call that a Jedi mind trick. You can call it magic. You can call it advanced selling techniques, social psychology, whatever you want to call it. It's going to impact whether they like you or not and want to hire you. That makes a difference, and it's something that anyone can do. Just doing the research ahead of time and coming in with the right questions can set you up to get these jobs faster. Does that make sense? Okay. So let's keep rolling here. I want to talk about galactic princess-like planning. Okay, because I don't know if you have noticed, but the princesses in these movies, they're planners, right? You look at Princess Leia, she's, the princess, she becomes general, of the army because she's such a great planner. You look at Princess Amidala, who's, again, she's the princess, and then she becomes a senator. They're planning, alliances and escapes and attacks. Right, they're planning things out, and Princess Amidala, she's got her own decoy, right? She's the one in the back. She's not the actual princess in that picture. Why would she do that? Why would she have someone else be playing the part of her? Because she's planning for all contingencies, right? They're planning for what could happen. If you think about this, knowledge by itself, knowing that something could happen, is useless. You have to do something with that information. As Yoda would instruct us, do or do not. There is no try. And where I'm going with this, and the information that you're going to gain here today, it's important to do something with this information, right? There's a wonderful book out there called Smarter, Faster, Better by Charles Duhigg. And it's a fantastic book, great read, and a lot of the premise that he gets in there, a lot of the ideas that he talks about, is that you need to envision what your perfect day is going to look like. Have you really thought about that at the beginning of the day? Think about at 5 o'clock tonight or 6 o'clock tonight, it's still in the morning right now as we're doing this webinar. Tonight, when you're sitting on the couch or you're sitting back to relax for a moment, what's going to give you that feeling of satisfaction to know that, hey, this was a good day. I did the things I was supposed to do, right? And you start thinking through those things, and you need to think about multiple outcomes and possible outcomes, and then assigning probabilities to those different outcomes, those different situations that could come up. You know, the kids could come down during the middle of the day and want to talk while I'm, you know, perhaps recording a webinar or whatever it is. The possibility of that, but maybe an 85% chance, you know, and so now I'm going to start thinking through, how can I get ahead of that? How can I create a decoy, for lack of a better way to put it? You can start thinking through the different things that you can do, putting a schedule on the door saying, hey, from this time to this time I'm in a webinar, so please, you know, let's try to keep the noise down, and you can't come in at that moment, but at 4 o'clock please come in, let's, you know, share some, you know, marshmallows together, and you know, whatever else. I've got a strange addiction to marshmallows. I love those big fat ones, so they know they can bring those in at pretty much any time, unless that sign on the door says I'm busy, right? And you know, or M&Ms or jelly beans or whatever your thing is. You know, and create those scenarios. The idea here is to develop a mental model for how the day should go, right? And then that way, when the distractions come up and the temptations to go in other directions come up, it's going to be much easier for you to make that decision to avoid that temptation than to go with it. Does that make sense? You know, and to actually do something with the information that you have. You know, you're going to gain this information. Don't just say, oh yeah, those are great ideas. Go and teach it to somebody. Go tell somebody else, hey, I watched this webinar. You know, here, it's, you know, I'm going to put the replay out there, so go watch the replay, and then let's talk about it. Let's go through these things together, and let's teach each other how to do this. You know, or you know, just simply write about it. That can do it. You know, other things. You know, if you're trying to you know, lose weight while you're home, a lot of people are talking about how the fridge keeps calling their name, and well, we're stuck at home here, and it's hard to resist. You know, to chart out, you know, weigh yourself, and actually don't just let the app do it for you. Grab a sheet of paper and chart it out, because then the next time you go to grab whatever you're going to grab out of the fridge, you're going to be thinking through that chart, and it's going to help you to implement these ideas. All right, and there's lots of wonderful technology that does stuff for us, but sometimes that hurts us. Right, and it's better to just write stuff down on paper. So hopefully that helps, and think about some visionary galactic princess-like planning as you're plotting out your day and your week. So another quick book I just want to mention by Charles Duhigg also, that actually is what helped me find the other book, is The Power of Habit. If you've not read that book yet, read that book. It is fantastic. I loved it so much, I specifically just looked up other books by Charles Duhigg, and that's how I found the Smarter, Faster, Better book. And if you look at my PHASE program, you know, P-H-A-S-E, the P stands for probabilities, which was inspired by the you know, Smarter, Faster, Better. And this one, The Power of Habit, the H, P-H, it comes directly from Charles Duhigg. You know, and helping me realize, you know, I'm assigning probabilities to the jobs I'm going after as a recruiter. I need to include this in the job search program that we're doing. And I know that the coaches at workNet do some similar programs as well. So just thought I'd throw that out there. Again, all of it's on speedupmyjobsearch.com/books if you want to see those. Well, let's keep moving. We're going to talk about Millennium-Falcon-like timing. I need a sound effect for that, for that falcon that just went behind me. Timing during the interview process is very, very important. So I'm going to address 3 quick questions with regards to timing and interviewing. The first one is, does it matter when I apply? I get that question a lot. Another one I don't get as much, but I should, is, does it matter when the interview happens during the day? And then lastly, if they've got a bunch of candidates, if they got 3 to 5 candidates, and I get the opportunity to choose, you know, where I'm going to go in that list, you know, what position should I choose? First, second, third, wherever we go here. And that first question is, I get asked a lot, and I'm telling you, I think we're overthinking with that one. It's not that important. I know some recruiters that love to look through their candidate resumes first thing in the morning at their desk with a cup of coffee in their hand, and I know others that like to go through resumes after the kids are in bed at the kitchen table with, you know, a cup of chamomile tea, you know, or an adult beverage, or whatever their drink of choice is. So there's no way to know who you're sending that to, so I wouldn't really worry about that. And Amy, if I can ask, if you can shrink me down again, because the next slide's going to be a book, and then you can just leave me there. Okay, great, thank you. So you just leave me here for the rest of the presentation. So the next question is, does it matter when the interview happens? And I'd like to share some thoughts from another Daniel Pink book. One of my favorites is a book called When. And I swear I don't work for this guy. He's got a bunch of books. And the book I was trying to think of earlier is A Whole New Mind. And he's got another one named Drive. Lots of really good books from Daniel Pink. So this one, When, is the scientific secrets of perfect timing. And he talks about in here a lot of studies. In all his books, he really gets into the case studies, which I appreciate. So that's data-driven information and not just speculation. So the first study that I would share is there was a study done on 2 million Danish students, right? And they had their standardized testings. Their standardized testing was put onto computer. Blah, blah, blah. Take two. Their standardized testing was all computerized, and they didn't have enough computers for everyone to take that test. So they had to kind of stagger the tests out. They couldn't all take it at the same time. So they had one group go, from 8 to 9, another group from 9 to 10, and kind of staggered it through the entire day. What was interesting is that the students that, as a whole, that averaged the highest test scores took the test between 8 and 9 in the morning, first thing. The second highest percentage of test scores came between 9 and 10. The third came between 10 and 11, and it decreased throughout the day, throughout the whole day. Each hour was a little bit worse than the hour before. Interesting. Now, the next one is, kind of a whole different spectrum here and viewpoint. This was done on the rulings that judges would give on parole hearings. Would they grant parole? Would they not grant parole? And the highest percentage of grantings, I guess is the best way to say it, where they were granting parole most often was first thing in the morning. And then it would kind of tail off a little bit throughout the day, but then it would jump up again right after lunch. And then it would tail off again throughout the rest of the day. And his point behind all this is that your mental acuity wanes throughout the day, but it wanes predictably, right? According to a pattern in the biorhythms of most human beings, right? So for 80% of people, not everybody's got, there's different biorhythms out there, but for 80% of the people, that afternoon lull, come right around 3:30, that is very, very real. For people, that's when your cognitive abilities are at their lowest point throughout the day. So, I'm not sharing this in case you're up for parole here soon and you need to figure out where to schedule your parole hearing. What I'm saying is, when I'm recruiting candidates, before this whole thing, when we were before we got locked in our basements here, a lot of times when I would schedule these interviews, I'm working with people who are currently working at the competitors of whoever I'm recruiting for. Well, I would call them and they need to get out of work to go to the interview. So they would often request that, hey, listen, I'm going to let them know I need to get off work a little bit early today. So can we schedule this at like 3 or maybe 3:30? And I can get over there and, nobody will be suspicious at work. Well, yes, we can do that, but that is at the absolute lowest point of their biorhythms of the day, of their cognitive abilities, of their ability to make sound decisions about the information that they're being given. I don't know that that's going to be the best time of day to schedule your interviews. So if you are going to schedule it in the afternoon, go right after lunch. Not immediately after lunch, so they have to rush back from lunch to see you, but I'd say half an hour after they get back from lunch, or earlier in the morning. Go according to your biorhythms as well. If you're more of an afternoon type of a person, factor that in. But again, we know everybody's not in the same biorhythms, but let's play the probabilities here. Let's go with the highest likelihood of having success. Okay, does that make sense? The other thing he talks about is, should you go first or last if you've got a set of interviews? And I really like the idea that he brings up of, if it's a brand new position, you definitely don't want to be first, right? Because they've done all the research on this role, they've talked to all their colleagues, and they've put together the longest list of things that this perfect candidate needs to have. So that first candidate is most likely going to be a disappointment, because you're not going to have everything on the list, and it's not until they start seeing what's in reality out there that they can start adjusting what they're expecting in somebody. And that's not just data and studies from his book. I've been a recruiter for over 20 years. I see that as well. In fact, in my probability calculation tool in my program, the first question to determine the likelihood, the probabilities of a position having to fill, being to fill, I ask a bunch of questions to determine how likely it is that position is going to fill. The first question is it a new position or a replacement? Because replacement positions, they're losing money for every minute that job is open. But for a new position, they've got time to think about it and go over, is this the right thing we're looking for? Is it not? Change the specs a little bit, and then interview again. And then by the end of it, I often hear, like, we have gone this long without that position. What's another year? Budgets are tight this year, so let's just put it on hold. We'll come back to it next year, right? Oh, what a waste of time. So you want to factor those kinds of things in. You don't want to be first for those. But if they've been interviewing constantly and they just need to get this position filled and it's a replacement position, that would be a time where Daniel Pink says it would be important to you should go first. Okay? And that's important. Now, I want to throw kind of another layer onto this from recruiting, because in recruiting, this is something obviously that is very, very important to us, because we want to put our candidates in the most advantageous situation that we can to allow them to get hired, right? Does that make sense? So we've done a lot of studying and surveys and observations on this topic, and the theory that I subscribe to and have subscribed to for a very long time. There was a trainer a long time ago that presented a few ideas that I kind of latched onto and evolved a theory from, which is if I got 3 candidates and I've ranked them in my head, first, second, third, and there's not going to be a huge disparity coming from a recruiter, at least, from our office here, because we're not going to send them somebody that we don't think can get the job. But, a difference between first and third won't be huge. But if I've got them ranked, my best, my second best, my third, I'm going to put my second best candidate first. I'm going to put my best candidate second, and I'm going to put my third highest candidate last. All right. And the psychology behind this, and the reason that I do this is, my goal is to help this employer to make this decision. From their perspective, this is a big decision, and I want to help them see that here's the best of what's available, and let's see if we can make a decision here from these. And so you think about it from their perspective, they start the interview process out, and like, wow, okay, that first interview, that was pretty good. Okay, that's a good start to this process. And then they see the second candidate, like, wow, that was even better. Okay, and now they're in the mindset of, okay, we're going to make a hire from this batch of candidates. These are good candidates. And then they see that third candidate, and it's like, all right, well, he was pretty good, but not as good as the first 2. And then we can start focusing in on, my conversation with them, where I'm saying, okay, so it sounds like the third one wasn't as good. You liked the first 2. What did you like better about that second candidate? So we start focusing on the positives of those first 2 candidates, and we can really hash out whether this is the right batch of candidates, and if so, let's move to the next step before we lose them. Or if it's not, we now know very explicitly why they're not a fit, and I can then refine my search from there to get them better fits. If I've got 4 candidates in the mix, in terms of order, I'm going to go 3, 2, 1, 4 for the same premise in psychology. And if I got 5, I'm going to go 3, 2, 1, 4, 5. So from your perspective, if you get to choose, always assume you're the best candidate and place yourself accordingly. All right, so if there's 3, you're the middle candidate. 4, you're the second to last. Okay, make sense? All right, let's keep going. Next, we're going to talk about controlling or influencing others through thought speed, right? Kind of like Rey is controlling the stormtrooper there with the Force, right? What I want to give you here is coming from a book called Thinking Fast and Slow. It's written by Daniel Kahneman, and the concept here is that you've got two sides of your brain and how you think, and he breaks it down into System 1 and System 2. System 1 meaning fast thinking, where you're making decisions without giving it full thought, but it's like educated guesses. And then System 2, you're really stopping to think it all the way through to come up with the exact right answer. Okay, so, and I'll give you an example. This is used in a lot of different books and resources, so I'm not going to credit just one place for this, but a common study to identify the difference between System 1 and System 2 is kind of a word problem, math problem, early in the morning, and that is if you have a baseball and a bat, and together they cost $1.10, and the bat is $1 more than the ball, how much does the ball cost? And if you quickly give me an answer, most people in the research give the answer of 10 cents, right? But that's not right, right? That's logically a good educated guess. You're thinking, oh, okay, it's $1 more, it's $1, and it's $1.10. The ball must be 10 cents. Well, if you think about that, if the ball is 10 cents and the bat is $1 more, well, that means that the bat is $1.10. Together, that's $1.20, right? So the right answer is 5 cents. So it's 5 cents plus $1.05 is $1.10. But you're not going to get that if you're not stopping to really think it through, or unless you've heard that before. If you think about the interview process, a lot of the books, and the reason I found that particular book is because a lot of these other interview books that are out there that I've read refer to this thinking fast and slow. And all of them that I read say that you want to keep the interviewer in System 1 throughout the entire interview. You want them coming in, they're thinking, okay, I'm just going to confirm you have the skills that I want you to have, and then I can make an offer and you're hired. So your goal is to just keep them in System 1 and don't rock the boat here and then get out as fast as you can. And I don't think that's going to be your best strategy, because I think they are in System 2 anyway in parts of these interviews. And if you can get them in System 2, if you can transition them into System 2 purposefully, well, then that's going to help you to stand out, because that System 2, that's a memorable time frame. So from the book's perspective, they're thinking if you kick them into System 2, that's because you answered a question just so incorrectly that they had to stop and think about, wow, how can you be that wrong about that? Would that actually work? No, that's not going to work. Really? Right? So that's, you don't want to get them there. But what if they ask you a question like, tell me about your management style? Instead of giving them the same answer that you always give, you say something about how, assessing employee strengths and weaknesses allows you to delegate appropriately, and when you're giving people tasks that they're interested in, they're going to engage more, and really that's the core of a good employee retention program. And that's why all the people that have worked for you have had low turnover. The people who have been working under your leadership tend to stick around, especially the A players, because they like working on things that they're good at. Right? That's going to get them thinking a little bit in a positive way, and they're thinking, okay, so if you work here, I'm gonna like working here, and that's a good strategy. That's a positive thing. So what I'm asking you right now is, what knowledge do you have that would get them to think in a positive way? What could you? They ask you a question, and then they become smarter because they asked you that question, right? Not that you're able to answer their question satisfactorily, that you're actually able to teach them something in your answer. Right? Does that make sense? So give that some thought prior to your next interview. Again, it's not a magic or a Jedi mind trick of any sort here. This is researched information. If you can make them feel better about themselves because of your answer, you're going to have better responses. Okay? So let's keep moving. Reading minds, right? Facial expressions reveal thoughts and feelings, in all ages, and a lot of this is involuntary, right? And I'm going to share some fun pictures here. My two kids, there's a couple pictures of my son, and there's my daughter. the thing about this is facial expressions, they're involuntary, even in babies. There was a study done that babies that were born blind, where they couldn't see their mothers or other children to mimic the expressions, still made the exact same expressions to express their thoughts and their feelings, not their thoughts, but their emotions at the time, right? So what does this have to do with anything? Well, when you're in these interviews, and here's the book that I want to reference, is Captivate by Vanessa Van Edwards. This is a fantastic book where it's the science of studying people. This is what she does. Well, it's the micro expressions, not the expressions where, you hold that expression. And Amy, if you can enlarge me into that big space there for just a minute so people can see my face. Now, keep in mind, I'm not a trained actor here, despite, my role as Han Solo, of course. I'll do my best with these, but the micro expressions, so they're just there for less than a second. It's not the held like, oh, man, really? Oh. Right, that is intentional, and I did that on purpose. But if somebody said to me, hey, Paul, all your work didn't save yesterday, so you get to do that PowerPoint all over again. Oh, well, hey, that's no problem. I'm good with PowerPoint. Happy to do it. Right? That little micro expression I gave at the start there, right? That just told you, oh, man, I don't want to do that again, right? So that's what you want to be looking for. Okay, thank you, Amy. You can put me back. So I'm going to give you 4 expressions, micro expressions, to look for and what they mean. And these interviews that you're going through right now, hopefully they're video conference interviews, so you can identify these as you're looking at people. And in fact, the companies are developing software programs to identify these micro expressions in the candidates, right? So they can try to tell whether you're telling the truth or you're trying to hide something or along those lines. So this is going to become a bigger thing here in the very near future. And if somebody watching this 5 years from now is saying, yeah, that's old news. Well, right now, while we're going through this viral crisis, this is still something yet in our future. So the first one that I want to talk about is eye narrowing. If you see, you're going to of course see, suspicion, right? But if they just do it for a second, you give them an answer like, all right, that's skepticism. They don't quite believe what you just said. Okay. The next one is often confused for like a smirk. It's that half smile, right, where they pull one side of the mouth back. That's actually contempt, right? So they not only don't believe what you just said, it actually kind of upset them, right? So you want to know that as you're going through this interview. It's not that they have contempt for you. It's just they have a little bit of contempt for what you just said. Okay. So you need to be able to spot that. The third one is the tightening of the lips. So right, that means that they've got a response to what you just said, but they're holding it back. Okay, and then the fourth one is the eyebrow flash, where they raise those eyebrows. Right, that's a good thing. That means that they are intrigued by whatever it is you just said. They're interested in what you said. It is a sign that you have engaged them in system 2 thinking. Okay, so what do we do with this information? Well, if you notice that they're skeptical of what you just said, or they have contempt, worse, for what you just said, or they're holding something back, try one of these types of responses, where you come back and you say, if you're anything like me, you probably found that tough to believe. But, okay, and that gives you the chance to go back and say it again. And when you say, if you're anything like me, that then develops that rapport. You develop rapport quickly with somebody who you feel symmetry with, who you feel that there's some things in common with. And when you say, if you're anything like me, that can get rid of that disconnect that was just created with whatever you just said, right? If you're in a panel interview, maybe that's a little bit harder to do, but you can say, I'm sensing some doubt with what I'm saying. So let me give you a quick story, right? And then give them the story. To help them understand what you're saying and get rid of that doubt. Okay? If you notice the eyebrow flash, which I'm assuming all of you are doing throughout this whole presentation, because this is so intriguing, you want to make a mental note of which part of your conversation that got them interested. When they did that eyebrow flash, what were they talking about? What were you talking about that made that happen? And then make sure you start getting more enthusiastic, more excited about whatever it is that thing is as you're talking about it. Because if they're interested in it and then they see that you are interested in it, again, we're developing a rapport here because you're starting to mirror their actions. Okay? So does that make sense? That last piece was a nice segue into this in terms of what they are doing. If you're watching that and trying to mirror what you're seeing when you're face to face with people, or even when you're having an interview through through Zoom or one of the other video conferencing applications that are out there. So this is the book I was talking about earlier, To Sell is Human. It's another Daniel Pink book. I didn't really realize that we're going through this, how many Daniel Pink books I've cited here, but I really like his stuff. He does a really great job. So we're going to talk about using mirroring to establish rapport. And what I mean by that is not just completely becoming a mirror for that person, but, if you notice their hands in their pocket, like this, you don't immediately go, oh, okay, here, where it's very obvious, but just their hands in their pocket already. And, as you're just talking, you're not thinking about it, not drawing attention to it, putting your hand in your pocket. These little subtle differences, this is where the concepts of a lot of these, the idea behind a lot of these concepts seems like it's, trickery or Jedi mind tricks or something like that, because it's like, really, does that actually work? It really, really does work. And you go through, and the next segment here will confirm that even further. But like, for example, there was a book, as I'm thinking about this right now, I don't have the picture on there, but there was a presentation done by Chris Voss. If anybody's read that book, Never Split the Difference, I think it is. He spoke at the GLS Summit, the Global Leadership Summit here in the Chicago area last year. And this guy is a CIA agent, and he was a hostage negotiator, like in the most ruthless parts, of the world, those really hardcore, terrorists that were kidnapping, high-ranking officials. This is the guy that had to negotiate that out. And the way that he developed rapport with those hostage takers was by repeating the last two or three words that they would say. So, I want a helicopter and some cash. Okay, a helicopter and some cash. So, and he would do that consistently, and that would create that rapport to a point where he could get the people out alive, right? And I mean, that's a huge deal. It really sincerely makes a big difference. On more of a personal scale here, and somebody that we might run into on a daily basis, kind of a thing. In my office, I used to have a recruiter. Her name was Sarah. She was exceptional at mirroring. In the last Jedi Mind Trick, I won't take everybody through the full story for those who saw that previous one, and I do have it on the highlight video. If you go to the YouTube channel and look for the previous one where I am in the full Jedi garb, I give the story of Sarah. It was incredible how well she could mirror somebody, both in words and actions, and enthusiasm and demeanor and everything, and she could coincidentally get along with people and build rapport with people better than anybody I've ever met. It was absolutely amazing. And to fall back on Daniel Pink here with some stories, or not some stories, but some studies, and I want to make sure I don't forget anything in here, as we're unscripted. I want to make sure I get these right. I'm going to just read a couple of them off here for you about this and the power of mirroring and matching what the other people are doing. So there was a Dutch study that he cites in this book that found that waiters who repeated customers' words exactly earned 70% more tips than those who paraphrased their words. And those customers that they surveyed said that they were more satisfied with their dining experience. A French study of retail salespeople told half the store clerks to subtly mimic the expressions and the nonverbal language of the customers, and then the other half they didn't tell to do this. And when the customers approached the salespeople, nearly 79% bought from the mimickers and only 62% bought from the non-mimickers. In addition, those who dealt with the mimickers reported a more positive evaluation of both the sales clerk and the store. In a Duke University experiment, which an interviewer presented what they reported to be a new sports drink, found that the people who were subtly mimicked, that they were more likely to say that they would buy this drink and predict that that sports drink would become a success. A study that was done at University of Illinois. I mean, all these study after study after study prove it. And the one that really blows me away is a book called The Like Switch, and it's by Jack Schaefer. And you want to talk about a difficult sales job. What this guy had to do is he had to befriend spies on the United States. So people who were in from other countries who were spies on the United States, he had to become friends with them to the point where he could convince them to go back to their countries and spy on their countries and then report back to the United States. So he had to turn spies on us into double agents. Talk about a tough sale. And he did it primarily through body language. Right, that is amazing. And I say at the beginning of this that you can learn to display your intentions through body language, like Luke in Star Wars. There's lots of photographs of him if you look, and he is consistently displaying those friend signals. I would guess he's a very likable, friendly guy in person. There are some things you can do that say, hey, I'm a friend or I'm a foe. One of which is the head tilt, where you see on the screen there, he's got his head tilted as he's talking. That says, hey, I'm a friend, right? Versus, the rigid, very professional expression, and I'm going to be a professional. And, that head tilt says, hey, I'm a likable, friendly person. It would be good to work with me on a daily basis. And remember, these companies, they're going to hire the person they like the best, not necessarily the person who's the most qualified, because they've got to work with you for 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day, 5 days a week. And that really makes a difference. So you want to be thinking about those types of attributes. The steeple position. So a lot of times you will see people that dominant personality type will have their hands, like this, and which basically is telling you that, I'm an authority on this topic. They're very confident in what they're saying. But what this is also doing is it's putting a barrier between you and between themselves and you. And as you start developing rapport with them, you're going to notice that goes away. And what's fascinating to me about all of this, and when I really started paying attention to it, is just in everyday conversations. If you're having lunch with somebody, or I guess we're not going to be going out to restaurants as much anymore, but even in your own family, you're sitting around the table and having conversations. There's a bunch of stuff on the table, right? And as you start developing that rapport in that conversation and connecting with that person, you got this stuff that's in the way. Pay attention to the fact that you'll notice they'll start moving stuff out of the way. Why are they doing that? For some reason, they're just rearranging stuff on the table. It's not noticeable. I've never paid attention to this before I got into this, but they start moving stuff out of the way, and it's because they're feeling a connection with you, right? So moving that stuff out of the way is, and you're in that conversation, not drawing attention to it, but you're in a conversation, you're just kind of moving stuff around just naturally. That's giving them the signal that you're feeling a connection there, and the people you're connected to are naturally going to feel that rapport, that connection, and they're going to want to make some favorable decisions, in your direction. So just kind of food for thought on that. That is a book that I would highly recommend. All of these books, by the way, I am an audiobook person. People wonder, how do you get through 2-3 books a week? I'm an audiobook person, so when I'm working out or taking a walk or whatever it is, I got audiobooks going as well. So you can pick them up that way. And I would just share very quickly, small tangent, if you are looking for a resource for audiobooks out there, of course there's audible.com, but there's monthly subscriptions and things. There is another one that one of the members had told me about called Scribd don't know if you're familiar with that. It's SCRIBD. It's an app for your phone, and it's like $7 a month or $8 a month or something. And you can download as many books, as you can get to, as are available for just the $7 a month. So you can look there. And then the library, at least in our area, there is an app called Libby, Libby, and you can borrow real books and audiobooks on your app, and that's free. All you need is a library card. So there's lots of ways you can get to this without having to spend thousands of dollars on these books, and they are all on my speedupmyjobsearch.com/books as well, and I do have links to Amazon there where you can buy them if you wanted to do that. So the poll at the beginning, I asked a couple of questions. First, I talked about the will I versus I will. Have you been thinking about will I throughout this conversation? Has that been kind of back of mind for you? And with that now front of mind, because I just asked that question, I said I would ask that poll question one more time, but in a slightly different way. So what I want to ask is, how do you think you will rate your interview skills 1 week from today? And I'm going to open up that polling here myself because I got it there. Amy, don't worry about it. Launch polling. So that's up. So how do you think you will rate yourself on your interview skills 1 week from today? Will you actually practice these techniques multiple times this week? All right. And hopefully I'm seeing numbers, and it looks like the curve is a little higher than it was before. Hopefully your number has gone up a little bit just through our conversation here, and it will go even higher as you really put some intention behind this. But my question to you, rhetorically, but please think this through on your own. If your number, is higher than it was before, my follow-up question is, why isn't the number you put in here, why isn't that number lower? Why didn't you put a lower number in there? And you don't need to respond, but if I did ask you to respond and tell me why you didn't put a lower number there, you will then be forced to defend why you put such a high number in there. You're going to start telling me all the things you're going to do to make sure it improves to go to that higher number between now and then. I will be very effectively forcing you to think the way that I want you to think. Are you with me? So it is very, very possible to influence others' thinking and ideas and where they're going with things. This is a very real concept, to influence others through just basic social psychology and the foundations behind what we've been talking about here today. And I've got one more that is my favorite of all times in terms of getting people to think and take action to things. And it comes from 3 questions. There we go, shattering through the ceiling. I love the transitions in PowerPoint. So my 3 questions are these. First, can you see how using these techniques can help you to network and interview better? Can you see how implementing these and using these can help you to do better? My second question is, are you interested in being able to network and interview better? And if your answer to those first 2 questions were yes, you can see how this would help you to do better, and you are interested in doing better. So if those 2 questions are yes, then, well, if you were ever going to start learning these techniques and mastering these techniques and skills, when do you think would be the best time to start? It's going to be a great week. All right, so let's dig into some questions. Here is my contact information for you. My LinkedIn profile there. Please invite me to connect. I am happy to connect. Follow me on Twitter and Facebook as well. You can find us there. If you're looking to learn more, on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/speedupmyjobsearch. We've got over 140 some videos out there. Looking to advance your career, speedupmyjobsearch.com. I would love to work with you and work with you personally, coach you through a lot of this, and put some structure into your search. So I hope this was helpful for everybody.
Thanks,
Okay.
Paul.
Thank you.
Thank you.